Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I feel like I should create an intro thing like John Oliver has for last week tonight, where he's like, uh, welcome, welcome, welcome to last week tonight. I'm your host, John Oliver, and it's been a busy week. Just time for a brief recap. All of that stuff that he usually says. I don't know if I should do that or not. I'm probably not going to, but it's an interesting thing to say, right? Just something to get everybody into the habit of like, hey, it's time to do history stuff. But I think I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I got a really good night's sleep last night for the first time in almost a week. I feel pretty good today. Did some research. Ran into some stuff that I'm not excited about reading that I'm going to have to, but that's kind of the whole point of research. What up, Cave Geek? How's it going, man? Good to see you. Um, yeah, it's been a fun day, I guess, and the got stuff accomplished kind of thing. I needed to go to the doctor today, and I also needed to mow the lawn today, and I did neither of those things. So I'm going to have to wake up early tomorrow and go to the doctor, and I'm going to have to wake up early on Saturday and mow the lawn. So that'll be fun. And I just moved this, and I don't know why I moved that. Why did I move that? The whole purpose of having that in that spot is to keep it in that spot, right? Yeah, I guess that's why it's called research and not crap posting. Exactly, because it's actually research, and I'm going to be able to definitively say what I say instead of just saying what I feel in my heart. Right? Oh, I know it's true because I feel it in my heart. Yeah, that doesn't work. That's not how science and research and history stuff functions. Remarkably, or perhaps not remarkably, I ran into a source today where this particular individual uh, claimed that he knew that this particular archaeological site was in fact correct, or his interpretation of this particular historical artifact was correct because, and I'm not joking here, God audibly told him that it was what this guy said that it was. So we're at this site, we look at this thing, and this guy said, well, I know it's true because God told me so, like audibly, and I don't need people with PhDs telling me. So one is used for owning the libs and the other is not. Correct. Can you prove God didn't, though? I guess that's fair, Cave. I guess that's fair. So, checkmate, atheists. Anyway, it's a weird situation, man. It's a weird time. You once got a message from God. Really? What did it say, Vipers? Also, hey, what's up? He was trying to contact you about your car's extended warranty. Maybe that's why things don't go as well for me as I need them to all the time, because all of those spam calls that I'm getting could actually be from God. And I just ignore them and I block all of the numbers. And maybe God's just really trying to get through to me on the phone. And the 3 or 4 spam calls that I get every day are just his way of not giving up on me. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. I got nothing. I got nothing on that. All right, so hello everybody. My name is Shane. I do history stuff for a living. Teach college history and sociology, and the show is called Adventures in History. You can see it right yonder. And we talk history stuff, and we have a good time. We kind of goof off and shoot the... Well, I can't say that. Shoot the breeze. I can say shoot the breeze. It's not what I wanted to say. And have a little bit of palaver, and maybe get a little bit smarter in the process. Maybe. We don't have to. Just maybe. And on Thursday nights, we've been going through history chronologically. And last Thursday, we started a new century of time. So we are covering the years 600 to 700, which of course is the 7th century. And we talked about 7th century Japan last week. And if you can see there on the map, we are going to be talking about, or I guess the large title here directly under me that says Korea. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I hope you all are doing well. I hope the world is treating you politely, and giving you the things that you need to be successful and happy. So there we go. Yeah. I just kind of feel chatty tonight. I don't know what it is. I really want to talk crap about Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which was a horrible movie. But I think I'll maybe save that till later. We watched that last night. It was so bad. All right, Korea. What's up with Korea? Well, we've been talking about Korea on and off. Of course, we've been talking about them about once a cycle now for about 5 cycles or 5 phases. So we've covered almost half a millennia, or probably more than half a millennia of Korean history at this point. And I know that this is not necessarily everybody's go-to thing when you study world history, but world history is the history of the world, right? It's got a lot of different people moving around. It's not all just, white people in Western Europe. So despite what the American education system tells you, the American education system minus me. All right, so let's take a map break. Here we go. What are we looking at in the beginning of our time period, right? So we've got 600s. We're going to start about 600 as we usually do. What's going on? Well, Korea itself, the Korean Peninsula, is divided into 3 kingdoms. And last time we talked about the 3 kingdoms of Korea, there were quite a few things going on. Goguryeo got fairly big, but then Shilla and Paekja sort of teamed up to attack it a little bit, and it kind of calmed down. Shilla then took the opportunity to destroy the Gaia Confederacy and bring them under control, and then took some land from Paekja, and then even took some land from Goguryeo. So Shilla was having kind of a good go of things, but in the larger world, we've got some Turkish people up here that are sort of new to the game. We've got, of course, the Yamato Japanese that we talked about a little bit last week. And we've got our controlling dynasty of the Sui down here in China. Now, I mentioned the Turks and the Chinese and the Japanese because all of these are going to be in the sort of what we might call extended network of Korea, right? They're friends on LinkedIn. A toe? I don't know where we're seeing a toe. I'm sure that we can read the coastline like some odd Rorschach test and see just about whatever we wanted to, but I don't know if that's necessarily what we want to do. Below Satobaru. Hayato? Oh, hey, a toe. But that's... Okay, so... one of the things about Japanese syllables is that usually it's a consonant sound and a vowel sound. And vowels stand by themselves, and Y doesn't act like a vowel. So it's Hayato. But I get what you're saying. It looks like, hey, a toe. But it's Hayato. I gotcha. Always with the eagle eyes, aren't we? Okay, so what's going on inside of the Korean Peninsula, and what are we really thinking about here? All right, well, at the beginning of the 600s, the big kingdom, the one up north, Goguryeo, which had been sort of at its apex of power not too long before, is actually fairly quiet. There had been that alliance between Paekja and Shilla that had sort of put them in a little bit of check, and China at that point had unified and was potentially going to be a threat So Goguryeo was not necessarily running around doing too terribly much at the moment in the Korean Peninsula, but there were other things happening, right? So China was not the biggest of threats, but it was kind of always looming on the horizon, right? Like the constant threat that's just sort of always there. But in the face of this quiet, Goguryeo is going to decide that it needs to sort of get its act back together. And instead of maybe poking around at the other kingdoms in Korea, maybe it should try to look the other direction. Maybe make some alliances, right? Let's start setting up some positive motion, right? We're going to reach out to other groups, particularly the Turks. And those Go Turks that had moved into the region in the last century and established themselves as a regional power had previously posed a minor level annoyance threat, right? Mostly what would happen are these sort of raids in force, where a large group of Turks would go into Goguryeo territory. They would maybe target a city or two or a couple of trade routes, hoping to hit some, loot. They would show up in a big enough number that they would be very difficult to deal with from any smaller, what we might consider like a regional force. And they would take all of their stuff and then they would haul butt out of territory. And this had proven to be troublesome and damaging, but it wasn't something that the leaders of Goguryeo felt like they really needed to sort of try to combat. Most notably because the Go Turks were doing all of these raids on horseback, right? Has anyone here ever loomed? Danny the GFP says hello from Cambridge, England. Well, hello, Danny. I hope that you're having a good one. Hello from the south of the United States, where it is very, very hot and currently storming. But I hope you're doing well. Feel free to chat, ask questions, do your thing, feel comfortable. We're pretty laid back here. We really don't have rules. 120-degree heat here. Holy crap, that sucks. Raids are so much easier these days. Just click a button. Horseback. I know, like if we had to actually raid someone on Twitch, that'd be very difficult to get everybody here physically to one location. That'd be pretty rough. And horses are expensive. I don't know if you've seen the prices of horses lately. Man, that stuff that starts putting a damper on how much you can, get around. If you think gas is expensive, try taking care of a horse. That's a lot. All right. Loomed like Woodstock over Snoopy. Either that or loomed like making a bed sheet or a bolt of fabric. That's like the looming. This is more like loomed as in made a noticeable rise on the horizon out into the ocean, as if Godzilla were soon to attack, but not immediately going to attack. I'm a big fan of history. You loved history at school back in the 80s? Oh, that's cool. Well, I hope that you enjoy your time here. I've got a few pieces of magic paper that say that I'm qualified to talk about history, but usually I just make all this stuff up, right? Horses are expensive. They can hold a lot of gas. They can, but unfortunately that gas isn't something that you can use to fuel anything other than perhaps nausea. Depending on how rancid the particular gas is. But we don't want to talk about bad gas. You've got all the Dan Carlin's... Oh, yeah, the hardcore history stuff. History and common sense ones. They also leak a lot. They do. But on the positive side... Oh, nope, I'm not going to make that joke. Not going to. I almost made a joke, and I'm not going to make it. Nope. Anyway, so Goguryeo is going to decide that we need to make friends with the Turks. If they're not going to go away, and we're not really going to load up the entire army and go over to the border and try to catch them on one of these raids, which would be very difficult to do. Korea had some horses and some cavalry, but they were mostly an infantry typed army. So trying to chase down the Goturk horseback cavalry brigade would have been really flippin' hard to do, right? Especially because, again, these were raids in size. They would, send several thousand in one of these big raids. So it wasn't like, 10 guys getting drunk on the weekend and deciding, hey, let's go over and knock over a Korean gas station. That's not what we're talking about here, right? I love how you always try to keep it PG, but in 5 minutes you're like, then the dude murdered everyone and married his sister. There's no sister marrying in this particular stream, Vipers. I'll have you know. There is some murder, but not any sister marrying. History itself happened. I don't have to add off-color jokes to the event to make them, I don't know, saucier. It's just, sometimes it's just what happens, right? All right, we're gonna make friends with the Turks. Okay, so the guy that is going to establish these initial dealings is a king of Goguryeo named Yongyang, and he is in charge from 590 to 618 of the Common Era. Right, so he's going to open up this dialogue with the Turks, and he's going to make friendship with them, and this actually disturbs the Chinese quite a bit, because the Turks had been problematic for the Chinese as well, and the Koreans had been problematic for the Chinese as well, and now it's like two problems joining forces. This looks kind of bad for us. And the guy that is in charge of a friend request sent to the Turks, exactly. So the guy that's in charge of China at this point is this guy. He is named Emperor Wen. What's up, Lumpy? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well this fine afternoon. So this is Emperor Wen of Sui, Sui Dynasty. And when he hears that this alliance has been set up, he goes, no. And he sends word to Yongyang and says, okay, here's the deal. First off, you got to break this alliance with the Turks, because I don't like you all ganging up. That's just too much. I don't like it. It makes me uneasy. I'm losing sleep over it. Also, I demand that you send me tribute and do subservience to me. So basically, I demand you become one of my vassals. And Yongyang was like, no. And this is going to begin Emperor Wen. Wen of Sui. Oh, see, now I know what you're doing. Okay. I see what you're up to. I see what you're up to. I'll get my eye on you. All right. First time was a legitimate question. Second time is a trend. All right. Okay. Anyway, so Wen goes, become my vassal. Yongyang says, not gonna, don't feel like it. And what is the response? Well, the response is China decides to invade Goguryeo. And they do this 4 times. They do it in 598, they invade again in 612, and then again in 613, and then again in 614. And they don't accomplish their goals. Yongyang is actually quite brilliant in the way that he decides to try to defend his territory. First off, he's really outnumbered, right? Because the army of China at this point, well, let me pause. if we take the actual Chinese sources at their word, which, we got to be a little skeptical, they're sending armies of like 300,000 soldiers. Or at one point in the 16 or 6, 13, 14, 15 invasions, they're maybe sending 1,000,000 soldiers, and that's pretty clearly not the case. The support that the Sui dynasty had at that point doesn't really indicate that they had enough manpower to send such large armies, mostly because we know that they were spending most of their manpower building these enormous public works things, like these big canals and these big palaces and stuff like that. So the fact that they say these big numbers could also be that they were trying to make themselves look stronger than they were supposed to, right? We sent 1,000,000 people to fight them. But it looks kind of bad if you think about it that way, because they lose. Like, all of these lose. And eventually, Emperor Wen is going to die. He's actually only in charge of the first big invasion. Then his son takes over. His son's name is Yang. And it looks like this. This is Emperor Yang of Sui. You can see here lots of influence, by the way, from Buddhism. The Buddhist art traditions are pretty clearly coming through in a lot of this stuff, because that was kind of a big deal. I love these shoes, by the way. These shoes that purposely sweep up on the end to keep you from tripping over your own sort of courtly robes. That's pretty flippin' brilliant. I like that stuff a lot. That guy's got big shoes. He must be a noble. You know what they say. Anyway. So, one of the reasons why, especially these last three invasions, the one in 612, 613 through 613, one of the big reasons why those fail is because Emperor Yang of Sui was sort of micromanaging the army. He wanted to be able to make all of the decisions himself. So he would have these constant streams of messages going to the front line and coming back, and he wanted to make sure that his generals were doing what he said to do. And what this really did was sort of handcuff the generals, right? If you're in the middle of a battle and you're trying to make a tactical decision, but you've been told by the emperor you can't make tactical decisions without my input, you're sort of messed up, right? You don't really get a shot at trying to figure out how to do all of this stuff if you're the only one that's really kind of pushing strategy, right? Because I'm trying to make a decision, but the emperor says he's got to make all the decisions, but I'm trying to... Anyway, you get what I'm saying. It's just kind of a mess. How old was Yang when Wen died? He was of age. Wen lived pretty long. So he wasn't like a little kid or anything like that, which is very, very common in Chinese dynasties where, stuff happens and then you end up with a 4-year-old on the throne or something like that. Anyway, in the process of these big invasions, it's pretty clear that the Sui are going to lose tens of thousands of soldiers. Now, whether or not they lose hundreds of thousands of soldiers, as the Korean sources say, we don't know. Probably not, but potentially. But what's going to end up happening in the process of this is that Yang of Goguryeo is going to become sort of a national hero. This guy is really intelligent and has some really, really good generals that are doing a lot of good deciding, and he's got some tactics where they sort of do these sort of hit and fade guerrilla tactics, and they lure people into mountain passes or river valleys where they can be easily attacked, and they can sort of cut down on the efficacy of the big numbers that the Chinese had. You know, those good tactics that you're trying to do if you're a smaller force trying to fight a larger force. And Yang does a pretty good job of that. Now, after these initial Chinese invasions, and to a certain extent while this is going on, there are other things developing down in the peninsula, because let's remember that Goguryeo sat in this northern position, right? They had this region right here. Of course, Sui China was right here, so they're sort of fighting in this northwestern quadrant of Goguryeo right up here. But what's going on down here? We've got two other kingdoms. We've got Pekja, which sits right here, and we have Shilla, which was sort of in a more dominant crescent position right here, sort of around Pekja. So what's up with them? Well, they had fairly quickly gone back to killing each other. While they had initially decided that it would be better for them to team up to fight against Goguryeo, while Goguryeo was all fighting the Chinese and being invaded just about every year, Pekja and Shilla were like, we're not really going to do anything. Do you want to just fight each other? And so they really did. They sort of set up all of these situations where they start beating the mess out of each other. And for a little while, Pekja is actually on a bit of a roll. They're going to manage to take, especially some of the region right here in this line of, oops, sorry, you can't see my mouse. This line of mountains, which runs kind of right around here. This had been one of the more natural boundaries of Pekja and Shilla, and this whole region had just a ton of border fortresses, and they had been traded back and forth between the two kingdoms probably a dozen times each. And if you were going to launch an invasion of the other side of the mountains, you needed to be able to hold a couple of these border forts, because of course they sat at natural crossings in the mountains, right? You're going to want to cross at the easy part. You're not going to pull some weird Hannibal in the Alps thing to attack Shilla. Finally, a MASH stream. Oh, MASH. You were so clearly about Vietnam. MASH was a great show, though. A sad show, but a good show. And a funny show, but you kind of had to remember what it was about, and then things got kind of sideways when you did. Anyway, so we've got Pekja, we've got Shilla, we're fighting each other, and they are more or less evenly matched at this point. Pekja had some support from Japan. Just in the last century, which would be the 6th century, Pekja had actually spread Buddhism into Japan, and there was quite a bit of trade between especially southern Japan and Pekja, and potentially even some military support to Pekja. So even though they were like the smaller kingdom, Shilla was more or less evenly matched to them. Also, when Goguryeo sees that Pekja and Shilla were back at fighting each other, Goguryeo decides to sort of exacerbate the problem, right? So when it looks like they're getting kind of close to making some concessions to each other, Goguryeo might throw a little bit of support behind one side or the other. And so Goguryeo will definitely play both sides off of each other in order to keep them both weaker, because remember, Goguryeo is trying to fight China on the other side. So while they're not directly involved all the time, I mean, if you're going to get an opportunity to, screw up your bad friends and, get in the middle of them and make them argue, you do it, right? You saw it here, but they took the canned laughter out for the UK. Oh. I wonder if that substantially changes the show. I wonder if that would... I bet that would really change the tone if it didn't have the laugh track in. They accidentally left it in once and the BBC got complaints. That's great. That is great. Danny, by the way, there are a lot of us here that really appreciate UK television, and especially like myself and David Peterson. We end up watching a lot of stuff. And Vipers is actually in the UK, so he gets to see all that stuff directly. But lots of BBC and Sky TV and all that stuff fans here in the chat. So if you got references, you're welcome to throw those in. I have been accused of not catching on to jokes. Part of that is because I get in like teacher brain mode and I take things literally, and then I miss the joke and I catch it up on the backside, and then I ruin it because I have to have it explained to me. Vipers doesn't own a TV. Okay, well that's cool, because you can't watch TV on computers or anything now. You don't like much USA shows, but Seinfeld is brilliant. Seinfeld's one of my favorites, so any Seinfeld references are going to hit. And I know that David Peterson is also a big fan of Seinfeld, and one of the things that we joke about a lot is Seinfeld-based humor. So, love the sign. Love the sign. And we talk about just about anything here. I get sidetracked pretty easily. You're currently on your third rewatch. Your daughter is 24 and she even likes it. Yeah, my wife had never seen all of it, and we started watching it a few years ago, and we got all the way to like part of the way through the 8th season, and then for whatever reason we just stopped. But I have all of them. Maybe I should go back and... Well, I don't know if she'd want to watch it from the beginning, but I would watch it just basically on loop. But I'm a weirdo. I do quite like the show. There's so much other TV stuff to watch, though. Like, do you rewatch Seinfeld, or do you watch another whole television show? Right? You don't have stereo, though. Your favorite rap group is actually from North Korea, Run DMZ. Yeah. I heard they had one really big hit, and that was the end of them. So, anyway, So, in the midst of all of this, Goguryeo comes out against the war in China doing pretty well. The destabilization that happens in China because partially of all of their loss in Korea is actually going to destabilize the Sui dynasty. They're going to collapse, and we're going to get a new dynasty called the Tang dynasty, and we'll talk a lot more about them next Thursday. So if you're wanting to know more about them, just bookmark. We'll come back to that. And in the midst of this disruption, the Tang dynasty is kind of looking for friends. And they look over to Korea and they go, the last guys had some pretty bad runs at trying to take over this region. Maybe we should just reach out to all these kingdoms. And so they sort of send envoys to everybody, and this is not really going to meet very good, response from Goguryeo. Like, didn't you just attack us, like, 4 times in a row? And Goguryeo is going to say, no, we really don't want to be any friends with you. And Pekcha's like, we're doing okay, but there's a king of Korea named Jenpyong, and he is the king of Shilla. And he gets this idea. You don't like Korean rap groups, or you don't like Chinese rap groups, though. Korean pop is K-pop, and Chinese rap is C-rap. I'm with you. Or maybe it's H-rap, because it's Han rap. Could be M-rap. Isn't M-rap like a type of military transport? I get where you're going, though, and I appreciate it. I just ruined that one on purpose. I did that one on purpose, though. So Jin Pyong goes, "You don't want to live on this internet anymore." What's up, Soul Can't Sleep? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. So Jin Pyong, what he sees is an opportunity. So Shilla is over here and is being attacked by Pekcha. And every now and then Goguryeo is going to throw in some stuff. And Shilla's sort of isolated over here by itself. Japan at that time was more allied with Pekcha than it was Shilla. So what is Shilla to do? Well, they go, "Hey, Tang Dynasty, you wanted some friends on the Korean Peninsula, right?" And Tang Dynasty says, "Yeah, that'd be great. Are you interested?" And Jin Pyong's like, "Oh, I've got a deal for you, bud. I will be a vassal to you, and I'll trade with you. I will send you tribute every year." And the Tang Dynasty is like, "Hey, this is a great deal. I like this a lot. Let's do the paperwork." Right? The Medical Readiness Assessment Tool, MRAT, is a cloud-based 3-application-in-1 electronic decision supporting screening tool. Tropical Geek, thank you. I did not know that. MRAP is mine-resistant, ambush-protected. I knew it had something to do with the military. Harry Canary asks, "Do I ever eat oatmeal for breakfast?" Not usually. I'm more of a granola fan. I typically, like on an average day, I'll have a granola bar for breakfast. I'll have a cup of coffee when I wake up, and I usually don't eat until a little bit later on, but around 8:45, I'll have a granola bar. My wife is a big fan of oatmeal, and she'll make a big pot of it and then sort of portion it out for the next few days. But she does like deluxe oatmeal because she's got like oatmeal that she makes. It's not instant oatmeal. It's like the rolled oats, and she'll make it in a big pot and has like walnuts and pecans and raisins and cranberries. It's a very hearty breakfast. It does sound, and it smells really good because she puts all of the spices like cinnamon. I'm a sucker for cinnamon. Oh my gosh, I love cinnamon. So when she's making that in the morning, the entire house just smells like a cloud of heaven or something. It's pretty great. What's up, Infernal? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. And Viper's up. Dun 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 dun. Harry Canary, thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. Kyle, did I say hello? I don't know if I said hello to Kyle. Hey, Kyle, good to see you. I saw you pop in earlier, and then I don't know if I said hello. It was very rude of me if I didn't. All right. So Jin Pyong of Shilla becomes a vassal of the Tang Dynasty of China. Now, this is an interesting situation because for a little while, this is going okay. But when Goguryeo decides to basically do one of their little interferences, Pekcha and Shilla are kind of fighting each other, and Goguryeo decides to kind of poke at Shilla. Jin Pyong sends word to the Tang Dynasty, and they're like, "Hey, here's the deal. This other kingdom, Goguryeo, they're not playing fair. We and Shilla are trying to send you our yearly tribute, and they have blocked it. And previously they had agreed to let us move by land through their kingdom to get to yours, but they're causing trouble, and they're aiding our enemies, and they've blocked your tribute, and Is there anything that you could do to help? And this is where things get real interesting. Because the the emperor of China at this point is this guy, whose name is Taizong. This is a great robe, by the way. Just a great design. And I'm supposed to be showing you the guy, but I'm more interested in his clothes. So this is Taizong, Tang Taizong, the Emperor of China. You're such a homer. At a glance, I thought the map of Korea was Chesapeake Bay, and you got excited. Hey, Shane, my face is up. Yeah, his face is up here. I'm sorry, I was just staring at his chest. Do you think he used beard oil? I would think maybe. I don't actually know that much about Chinese facial hair grooming standards. I know that they combed their facial hair a lot, but I don't know if they used any sort of oil. What's the difference between a king and an emperor? That's a great question. So king... Oops, sorry, wrong button. A king is typically a person who just rules a kingdom. So he is one person or that rules one group of people. And those group of people are usually the same, culturally speaking. Now, if that king decides to go conquer another kingdom who are a different group of people that are ethnically different or culturally different, that's when you become an emperor. So typically the term king just means I am in charge of one country that is basically one culture and one group of people. But an emperor is a person who rules multiple groups of people. Dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Big Red NYC. Thank you so much for that follow. And welcome to the adventure. All of the follows. Dun 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 dun. Raging Hamster. That's a great username. Thank you so much for that follow. And welcome to the adventure. So, like the UK here has a queen because we are the United Kingdom, a group of 4 countries who all used to have their own kings. Correct. So, could the British kings of the past be considered emperors? Yes, and many of them had emperor as a title. For example, Queen Victoria was the first British noble to use the title Empress of India. And the British at that point were referred to as the British Empire because they controlled stuff basically all around the world. Right, so the Chinese are referred to... Dun dun dun. Soul can't sleep. I hope you can eventually get some sleep. I have insomnia bouts myself, but thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. We aren't a United Kingdom, we are a United Kingdom. Correct. Watching the TV show Vikings is good because it shows how many kings at once. Yes! So that's a great point to bring up too about especially the Nordic cultures. Everybody thinks Vikings were sort of a unified group, but it really wasn't. It was more like a whole bunch of warlords / what we refer to as petty kings. But petty here doesn't mean like, oh, that was a really petty thing to do. Petty meaning sort of smaller or diminutive. Small kingdoms that were maybe just one city and just barely the surrounding areas, right? And then there were the Finnish. Yeah. But they came in at the end. See what I did there? So we refer to it here as the king, like Jin Pyong was the king of Shilla because he controlled the kingdom of Shilla. But we refer to as Taizong, I could put his name here, as the emperor of China because he controlled a big region that didn't just have Chinese people in it. It had a lot of other cultural groups and ethnic groups and even different languages, religions, etc. Because China was very, very large. At this particular point, The Tang Dynasty was basically all of this. So the sort of this whole region right here, and it even stretched out into this region, and it began to stretch down even here into what we might call, a lot of people want to call this Indochina. I prefer to use the term Southeast Asia, but Indochina is sort of a term that a lot of people know. Modern day countries like Vietnam, Laos, etc. So the Tang Dynasty controlled a big chunk of territory, and the emperors there were pretty powerful. All good questions, and if you have more of those, keep them coming. That's just as interesting to me for me to talk about as the stuff that we're here to talk about. Anyway, so Jin Pyong reaches out to Taizong and says, look, you need to help us out. These Goguryeo guys are being jerks, and they're keeping your money from you. And Taizong's like, we're going to have to come get you. And this is going to be really interesting because Taizong is going to decide that he sort of needs to just conquer Goguryeo. Not go beat them up, but like actively conquer them. And this is a big deal. In 645, Taizong brings a big army in and invades. And the king of Goguryeo manages to hold on and push them out. And that was sort of unexpected because the Tang Dynasty were on a bit of a roll. They had been in a really good momentum building streak, and we'll talk more about them next week, specifically from their point of view, because they're conquering a whole bunch of people at this point. So it's kind of bizarre if you're looking at it from the Tang Dynasty, but if you're looking at it from a larger sort of historical perspective, I mean, the Sui Dynasty invaded these guys 4 times and didn't conquer them. So, but they invade again in 647, and then they invade again in 648. And Goguryeo beats them both times. And then the Tang are like, well, I know that you're supposed to be our friends up there, and you sort of swore loyalty to us, and we told you that we were going to protect you, but, buddy, you're kind of on your own. And Jin Pyong kind of gets hung out to dry there. He actually dies during this period of time, and he is dead. And Shilla actually has these really neat burial mounds. So this is the royal tomb of Jin Pyong. And you all know that if I can show a tumulus on stream, I'm going to show a tumulus because I freaking love these things. I mean, if I weren't interested in having a Viking funeral, building a big stone tomb for me and then piling a giant hill of dirt on top of me would probably be my number 2 request. Dude, I absolutely love tombs. Infernal, you have no idea. The number of underground things and tombs and old burial chambers and crap that I've crawled into is a lot higher than the average person would think. When we were, I was in Turkey about a month and a half ago, and one of the things that I got really excited about was we went to this particular area of Turkey where the outcroppings of rock are particularly soft, which means that a lot of people built tombs by carving them out of the bedrock. And man, I crawled down into so many friggin' tiny little holes in the ground. It's really great. I love hanging out in tombs. And in Korea, you can actually go to a lot of these. They have some of them even opened to where you can literally go inside of them and see the burial chambers. So that's pretty cool. What's more metal? A Viking funeral or a Tibetan sky funeral? So we have being put on a boat that leads to the ocean, or put on a boat in a body of water that leads to an ocean on top of the heaped glory of our worldly accomplishments and being set on fire, or we have being brought up to the top of a high mountain with a wide-ranging view and having our body left out so that birds can eat it in order to carry our spirit back up into the sky. So both of those are pretty metal. I'm going to end up going with my bias here. I have Northern European heritage, and I legitimately want a Viking funeral, so I'm going to have to go with the Viking funeral being the more metal funeral. But to take nothing away from the Tibetan sky funeral, that's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, and the fire does play an angle into it, Soul. The fire and the actual use of giant piles of metal, because one of the things that frequently got put into the boat were like the swords of your conquered foes. That's pretty metal, right? I like that. Shane must have been a hobbit in a past life. Maybe. I don't know though. Like I don't drink in this life, so maybe I got all of it done in the last life. And I'm actually allergic to tobacco, so I couldn't smoke pipe weed. Maybe I had too much exposure to it in the last life. I mean, maybe. I can see it. I kind of like the idea of being converted into bird poop and rained onto other people's car windshields. That's not a bad idea either. I'm being visited by a puppy. Would you all like to see the puppy? Come and see me. Come here. Come on. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
And I'm Puppycus, the puppy of war. Oh, kitty food. JMR. Thank you so much for that follow, my friend. It's good to see you. 9 months, we now have a Twitch baby. Dun dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Danny, thanks, man. Much appreciated. Welcome to the adventure. JMR, you get to name our Twitch baby, and I'll try my best to remember what the name of it is. Let's do some shoutouts. We've got some good friends in the chat. We'll start with my friend JMR. JMR Killer is a gamer and also builds some pretty cool model stuff. Sometimes out of Legos, sometimes Gundam kits, sometimes other model kits like Pokemon kits. Really interesting streamer to talk to. Good insight. I like his taste in movies. And it's just a good time to go hang out in the gaming fort. Now, he's doing a little bit of reorganization for the gaming fort, so give him a follow now. That might be a little bit before he gets back around, but he'll be back soon and it'll be better than ever. And you want to be there when that happens, right? We've got Infernal in the room. Infernal is also a gamer, but also does other things, like talks very intelligently about things like sociology and life and the world, has lived all over the place. Sometimes works on cosplay stuff, does sewing stuff, does other types of craft work stuff. And it's just a delight to go hang out. So you'll want to go check them out too. We've got Lumpy Dragon Potato in the Froom. In the Froom? What the devil's a Froom? In the room, Lumpy is a Minecraft builder extraordinaire working on a new kingdom that he's building from scratch called Fanriel. And it's already looking dope as heck. I don't understand how quickly stuff can go from, hey, here's an open space, to, hey, here's a giant friggin' castle that's got like crenellations and all kinds of decorations on it. The new build is also like upgraded with like HD graphic stuff, so there's like lighting effects. Just go watch Lumpy and listen to him talk about the amazing things that he does, and question him about his growing theological, philosophical, might be a better word, philosophical views of urban monasticism, which I think are fascinating. Who else is here? Who else? I feel like, oh, yep, we got a couple people. We've got Kid Geek Art, who does art in a way that I bet you've never seen it unless you've been to his channel. Is interested in the way that ancient people did stuff and does usually map making, but sometimes other types of art on brain tanned buckskin. That's like, deer hide that has been made into leather with brain stuff, and it's like authentically made, and he uses a pyrography tool to burn stuff into it the way that people would have done, minus the pyrography tool in the ancient world, and paint stuff with natural pigments and uses bone tools to do all this stuff. Super fascinating. Other times we'll play video games. Plays a whole bunch of different types of games. He's currently playing stuff like Thief, and will occasionally play World War Z, which I found out that I had, but my computer is too slow to play, so sadness. You took a picture. I forgot you took a picture from the Museum of Gold in Cartagena. Maybe you can send it to me. Maybe you can use it. Oh yeah, absolutely. Sure. We're not too far away from that. It'll be a while, but it's not like unforeseeable in the distant future. And we've got David Peterson, who is a good friend and an amazing artist, a nationally known, internationally recognized, just really great author and illustrator. Cartoonist is the right word, but if I say cartoonist, some people are like, so he does funny pages in the weekly paper? No, not that kind of cartoonist, but does Mouse Guard, one of my favorite comic books. Also does beautiful art of different types, so give David a follow. And I think that's everybody. Am I missing anybody? If I'm missing anybody, let me know, and I apologize for missing you, but I'll totally give you the shout out if you get it, if you know what I mean. You have a couple of picks of gold pieces there. Cool. I'd love to go to Cartagena one day. Anyway. You don't stream, but I like being missed. Tropical, it is good to see you, my friend. And I appreciate the constant stream of intelligent, pertinent, and good information that you bring to the larger conversation. I also like the fact that you appreciate how good beef tongue is. Not many people do. Not many people do. Ever heard of the Koryo-sama in Russia? Are they related? I'm sorry. Have you ever heard of the Koryo-sama in Russia? Are they related to this Korean timeline? Kind of, but that's going to be a little bit later. Okay, so for those, let me start at the beginning. All right. So the Koryo-sama are a group of people that were ethnically Koreans, but ended up living in Russia. And specifically, like, during the Russian imperial period, when Russia is basically expanding. Let me get over here to my map. All right, so Russia, of course, is going to expand to take basically all of this stuff. Right, and then they're even going to expand down into here, specifically during a period of time in the, well, I guess technically beginning in the 1700s, but then mostly in the 1800s and early 1900s. Russia is going to have a really big interest in this region right here. This region is sort of widely referred to as Manchuria. And that's really when you're going to start seeing the use of the term Koryo-sama, because prior to that, Russia didn't necessarily have a lot of... Oops, sorry, wrong. I apologize. I'm moving my cursor on my picture of my stream and not actually the map itself. So Russia is expanding this way. This region is Manchuria. When Russia expands down into this region, that's when the Koryo-sama are first going to really be sort of looked at. But over time, there are going to be people from this region that are going to actually move all across this passageway right around here. And that's partially because of a few different kind of cultural mechanisms, right? The biggest one is going to be something that kicks up kind of right around this time where you're going to start seeing a lot of Northern Asian is not necessarily the correct term. Let me just, can I draw a line on here? Do I have a line tool? I don't have a line tool. But imagine a line that sort of runs right through here. That basically starts in this northern region of Korea and runs right across this gap. You can see sort of this natural funnel or natural land gap that runs right through here and then over into this region, which is where all the countries that end with Stan are. So like Kazakhstan, well, here I guess I can put on the borders. So like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan and Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, Afghanistan and Pakistan. So there is a trade route that gets sort of popular in the late 600s and early 700s that's going to actually start seeing Korean people move across this region on these sort of larger trade networks. So if you look at populations by like, I don't know, probably the late 700s, you're probably going to start seeing at least a little bit of Korean people that might be over here, but really the big introduction of people from this region that comes over here is going to be during a lot later period, especially around the 13, 14, 1500s, and then especially during the time period where rail starts being introduced in the 1800s. So you're going to start seeing that around that period of time. But that's not really until Russia becomes what we would consider like a big kind of imperial power, which they at this point are not at all. At this point, there isn't really even a unified Russia at all. And we're talking specifically here about the 7th century, which is 600 to 700 of the current era. The silk trade, so dueling needles, the silk trade route runs in that region, but it's usually a little bit more southerly. So the Silk Road starts over here in the good old-fashioned homeland of China, and it runs up this little cut and into this sort of river valley right here. And then there's a natural route that gets over into this region. This region is referred to as the Tarim Basin, Tarim. And then you can see that there's a little output right here where you can pop through these mountain ranges, and then you get out into that sort of Central Asian route. And that's going to mostly get set up under the Han Dynasty several hundred years prior to this. Actually, quite a bit earlier, if I'm just being real honest. The Silk Road really starts getting established probably about 900 years prior to what we're talking about. That's a little too much. Maybe 800 years, if I'm just being honest. And there were already big trans-Asian trade routes that had existed, especially going all the way back to people like Alexander the Great, who established big trade routes that went all the way from over here in Greece and Macedonia over to India, right? All of those cities that he was founding and named after himself, that tied into an even older system of transportation that was called the Persian Road, the Royal Persian Road that was created by the Achaemenid Persians way back in the 500s BCE, which basically ran right up this region right here, and then over into Anatolia, sort of in a like an upside down oblique angle. So you have the Persian Road, and then Alexander added to it this stuff. And then the Han Dynasty is going to connect its trade network to these cities over here in the Tarim Basin. And then this group is going to sort of get reintroduced to each other under a group of people called the Greco-Bactrians, who were left over after the end of Alexander's trade. And then, boom, you're going to have a trade route that runs by land all the way from over here in Asia, over here in Europe, all the way over here to China. But this region up here is not as populated when the Silk Road gets really activated and used very widely. It's not really until the later periods of time, probably into the 400s or 500s, when you're going to start seeing substantial populations of people up here. And most of those people are going to be nomadic. They're not necessarily going to be living in big cities. But by the time you get to like the 700s or so, they're going to start being some established trade routes that go through this region. But to answer the initial question, the Koryo-sama are typically about, I would say, 700 to 1,000 years later than what we're talking about. And I know that was a very, very long answer, but again, I chase rabbits and I like to give full answers instead of just like, no. How long was it before they realized that silk made for a terrible road surface? Well, see, the thing is, like, they had lots of layers of it, you know, and they would lay it down and then they would cover it in tar, right? So if you build up enough layers of it, it actually turns into stuff that's kind of impermeable, right? It's like graphene. It's going to be bulletproof and you can ride your mules and your carts on top of it. And it turned out to be fine. I'm just joking. They didn't actually make roads out of silk. I was just rolling with Viper's pun there. All right. Rabbit successfully chased. Let's get back to Korea. I love that stuff, by the way. If people have questions like that, these are the good things. All right. So, Taizong. Emperor, doing things, conquering things. Can't conquer Korea, though. And ends up dying rather suddenly. We'll talk about that next time. But when Taizong is out of the picture, well, guess what? The other two kingdoms in Korea get really angry at Shilla because they're like, why did you bring China back into this? Like, we were kind of doing our own little thing, and yeah, we weren't that happy. Yeah, we weren't really getting along, but you invited China into the middle of this? Like, no. And so Goguryeo and Paekje really start just beating the crap out of Shilla. Great answer. Thank you. Cool. Did Marco Polo interact during this time? Marco Polo is also significantly later. He's going to be, let's see, about 600 years after what we're talking about. So from this period of about 649 to about 660, for about 11 years, Goguryeo and Paekje just beat the junk out of Shilla. China, but we were so happy killing each other, right? Like, we were doing fine. It's like three siblings that are squabbling, and then one of them goes and tells the parent, and the parent comes in and just knocks all their heads together, and then two of them gang up on the one that tattletailed. That's what happens, right? So you freaking told mom. So Shilla gets beaten up on pretty badly because they told. Mom, Goguryeo won't let me give you stuff. This was really just, it was retaliation and it was punishment and it was reconquest. Because in the last century, Shilla had conquered quite a bit of Paekje and even parts of Goguryeo, and Paekje and Goguryeo are going to take the opportunity to get that back from them, and it's not going to go very good for for Korea. For Shilla. That is until the reign of this guy, Muyol, who is this guy. That is a fancy headdress. He gets +2 cool from just wearing that hat. It's got neat little yin-yang symbols on it. Decked out. This is King Muyol. And he decides that you gotta do something, right? And he sends a message to the Emperor of China, who at this point is a guy named Gaozong. And Gaozong looks like this. Man spent too much time worshipping chess pieces, decided to look like one. What up, Magnificent? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. So this is Gaozong, Emperor of Tang China. Not nearly as cool of a hat. I mean, just by comparison. Just saying. He ruled a heck of a lot larger area. And I guess that's the thing. Like, your hat decoration is inversely proportionate to the amount of territory that you rule. So this guy who's got a very basic hat rules a whole bunch of territory. That seems... I'll make that an official rule of history. I'm just picking. I have no idea. Anyway, so Muyol sends word to Gaozong and says, look, here's the deal. We're not going to make it. If you don't help us out, we are goners. We are being pummeled. We have lost territory. We have lost a lot of men. We're running out of supplies. You got to come help. Right? The name of our Twitch baby is Baggy the Chunky. Bagging the Chunky. Because he rides the chunky horse. That's great. Oh, man. That's great. JMR, that's great. Small hat will travel. Yep. What's the deal with hats? Are they just some kind of wish I had a crown thing? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe they just have bald heads and they're trying to hide it. Maybe they're like me and they sunburn easily, so they need shade. It could also just be cultural, power projection. Exactly. Look at my hat. Aliens. It's always aliens, right? So Muyol sends word to Gaozong and says, look, we're on our last leg. You got to help us. If you don't help us, we're going to be gone. And we swore allegiance to you, and you told us that you would be on our side, and you haven't done anything for the last 11 years, and we've been beaten badly. You got to come help. And so Gaozong goes, all right, okay, fine, we'll do it. So he invades Goguryeo, and this is in 660. Gush. 660. And it goes pretty well. It's better than previous Chinese invasions, but they realize pretty quickly that Goguryeo is the big problem, right? So if we go back to our map here and get a little bit more of a reminder, Goguryeo is a big country, relatively speaking, right? Shilla had lost a lot of territory. Goguryeo had actually taken a lot of this, and Pekja was about this, and then some of this at the time. So Pekja was bigger, Goguryeo was also bigger, Shilla was smaller. This is, again, a map of the status quo in the year 600. So we're 660. We're 60 years after this, right? I thought you might know, you've got your own hat emoji. I have 2 hat emojis. So I have the adventure hat, and then I have the opinion hat. And of course, we know that the opinion hat adds +5 rightness when I wear it, right? Also, I forgot to do this when JMR subscribed. JMR, thank you for once again being Spartacus. Anyway, so Goguryeo was the larger threat. And they come up with a plan, they being these two guys, Muyol and Gaozong. They go, what if we didn't attack Goguryeo first? What if we attacked Pekja? That sounds like a great plan. So here's what happens. China loads up a big navy, and they send them across to attack Pekja. And at the same time, Shilla moves its army down and attacks them from the land. And now Pekja, who was kind of like expecting Goguryeo to always be there to back them up, is caught between China on one side and Shilla on the other, and this is bad. Pekja falls almost in a year. Like, they almost conquer all of the country in 12 months because they just did not see this coming. Pekja was completely blindsided by this movement. And Shilla is going to be really excited about this because they're like, holy crap. We're going to be able to take all of this territory. We're going to be able to put it in our kingdom. But Pekja sort of has one more card left to play. They reach out to their friends over here in Japan, and they go, friends in Japan, please come help us. We're about to die. And Japan actually heeds the call. They pack up a big ship, not a big ship, but a bunch of ships, and they sail over, and they run square into the Chinese fleet, and the Chinese fleet beats the junk out of them, and then they land to catch their breath and then go straight back home. And that was the sum total of the alliance of Pekja and Japan during this particular war. Japan did not think that they were going to run into a vastly superior Chinese fleet, and they actually got home and decided, we've angered the bad guys, we should probably build defenses. And Japan spends about the next 10 years building really big coastal border defenses. Hat bad. Hat plus fire equal good. I don't want to burn the hat. It's a massive sandwich. Yeah. And it's not a good sandwich, though. It's like a sandwich of death. Right? Yeah, good game, Japan. Good game. Right? So, Pekja gets conquered. And things go a little bit squirrely for Muyol here, because he thinks that when they conquer Pekja, that Shilla is just going to get all of that land. But China's like, no, I think we're going to hold on to this. Muyol's not happy.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
KP. Thank you so much for being Spartacus for 2 years. I was actually commenting yesterday to KP in the mod chat that it's really hard for me to believe that I've actually been at this for 2 years, because when I first started it did not, I really didn't think it was going to do anything. I thought that I would be basically stuck on stream talking to myself for like about 6 months, and then everybody would be like, it's not even worth it, and then I would shut the channel down. But it hasn't been that. Things have actually been really interesting, and I really appreciate all the support that you all give. And while I don't have I don't have the hundreds of people And I'm not after the hundreds of people. But it is cool that you all keep coming back and keep talking and hanging out. And I really do appreciate it. And KP is one of the biggest supporters of the entire channel. He's got that first badge. This guy's been there since the beginning. And is also my best friend in the world. So, like the gobbler from Wawa. Yep. What's ironic, perhaps, is that Japan in ancient Chinese records is referred to as the Kingdom of Wa. There you go. Yep. What's it like sitting on the council but without being a master? Yeah, kind of, sort of. Anyway, so Gaozong keeps Pekja. So this part of the Korean peninsula that Shilla thought it was going to take over, it doesn't get to take over. But with Pekja gone, now we have a freed up army of Shilla that can march up to this region and really put a hurting on Goguryeo, while the freed up navy floats up to this peninsula right here. This is the Liaodong Peninsula. And they use this as a staging ground to invade Goguryeo. And this is pretty rough. It's a pretty rough fight. Goguryeo does not go down without a fight. It takes about 8 years of fighting for the combined force of Gaozong and Muyol to wear Goguryeo down. Also, not too long ago, or not too far into this, Muyol ends up dying because, I mean, he's old. That's what happens. And check this out. So this is his tomb, and it's this big turtle thing with this dragon's like motif on the top of it. So this is the royal decoration tomb of Muyol. I had never seen this before I started looking for pictures for the stream, but that's really friggin' cool. I'd love to go see that. And it's a tourist attraction. Like, you can actually still, I mean, you can see it's like fenced in. You know, you can't just like go ride the turtle or anything like that. But looks like the turtle that carries the world. Yeah, it's just turtles all the way down. So, even though Muyol is gone, Gaozong continues the fight. Macaroni and brie. I dig it. Welcome in. And yeah, it's really pretty. The decoration on that stuff is pretty impressive. But good to see you. Hope you're having a great whatever time zone it is for you. I like turtles. They're okay. Of all of the reptiles, turtles are probably my favorite. I'm not the biggest fan of snakes. I have seen and encountered a lot of venomous snakes in my life, and that has made me not like afraid, but cautious and aware of snakes. So like if I'm in the backyard or if I'm in the woods and I see a snake, my first response is, oh crap. You know, then you kind of have to like approach at look, measure, and then if it's a normal snake, you're like, oh cool, check that out. Or if it's a venomous snake, you're like, oh crap, go the opposite direction, right? I'm not a really big fan of frogs or toads. They're just kind of not really my thing. I don't have a problem with them, but like if it's a turtle, I'm like, oh cool, check out, it's a turtle. I'm a pretty big fan of turtles. Also like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you look on the wall over here, this thing right there is a limited edition print of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they all had red like red face masks signed by Kevin Eastman, who is one of the two the two creators of the Ninja Turtles. What about Liquid Snake? Solid Snake is always a little bit more. My angle. Man, I haven't played any of the more recent games. I'm so far behind. When that series stopped being video game and started being like interactive movie, I kind of gave it up. You know. But then I heard the most recent one was a lot more like open world and really fun. But I don't think I can just jump into that one and play it because I haven't played like the previous two games, and the storylines are so important to those games. I know I could like just read the wiki, but whatever. What do I have against amphibians? I don't have anything against amphibians per se. I think newts are kind of cool. Axolotls are kind of cool. The last one is a prequel. Oh, maybe I don't have to go watch all the other ones then. I guess I could get that. That came out for PlayStation 4. I could get that on PlayStation 4. I don't need any new games right now. I've still got games that I bought myself for Christmas last year that I haven't played. I don't need any new games. You're going to be building the Rex. Nice. I'm interested in watching that one. Let me know when you start working on that stuff. Axolotls, Last Word, and Arrested Development. Man, I couldn't get into Arrested Development. I know that a lot of people get really excited about Arrested Development. I just couldn't get into it. I watched like the first, I think 5 or 6 episodes, and I see what they were doing with the show, but there's just a level of inanity, or a level of randomness on purpose, if that makes any sense. Like, what is the least likely thing to happen? We're going to do that. Right? And every time something is going to happen, it's always the least likely thing to happen. So Arrested Development is a TV show. And I like Jason I like all of those actors. Like, Jason Bateman is really funny. I don't have a problem. Like, he was a cameo character, or like a throwaway character in Dodgeball, and his character is one of my favorite quotable characters from that entire movie. Pepper needs new shorts is something that I say on the regular. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how that pays off for him. Like, we say that junk all the time. Yeah, Jessica Walters is great. And, like, I like her stuff. I know most of it was, like, voice actor stuff on things like Archer. But she's a great actress, too. And, I couldn't get into it. It's just really quirky. I think quirky's the right way of saying it, Macaroni and Brie. Ouchtown, population U. Yes! Yes! Usually you pay double for that kind of action, Cotton. I love that stuff, but it just, for some reason, it was lesser than the sum of its parts, and it just didn't hit for me. And people keep saying stuff like, you got to give it, like, watch the whole first season. But I don't know if I can do that. It's an investment, you know. Michael Cera is like porridge without any sugar. He's like wallpaper paste. Michael Cera basically plays Michael Cera in every role that Michael Cera plays. I don't know if I've ever seen Michael Cera in a role where he wasn't playing Michael Cera. Because I don't think that he's acting. I think that's just him. I really just, like, he walks in, and I think that's just the way that he acts. He's not actually doing a craft. He's just reciting lines as himself. Oh, Juno being one of the worst movies you've ever seen. That's a bit of a spicy take, Ian. It's not one of my favorite movies, but I do find it somewhat endearing. There's a tone there that is a little bit happy and fuzzy, and I kind of appreciate it a little bit. I don't know if it's one of the worst movies. It was a pretty good movie. I don't know if I would go as far as to say it was a great movie. I don't want to watch it more than about once a decade. But it's okay. He doesn't always play Michael Cera. You found a movie on IMDb where he plays a character called Himself. Is that oh crap, what's the name of that movie? This Is the End. What's the movie that has like Danny McBride and where all of the actors play themselves? It's like Danny McBride playing himself, and Michael Cera playing himself, and Emma Watson playing herself, and James Franco playing himself, and I think it's just called This Is the End. Yeah, I think it's called This Is the End. Yeah, that movie is really funny, and I kind of want to watch that one again. It's horrible and dumb, but it has some great lines. Like if I don't get at least part of that Three Musketeers, I'm going to be really upset. And there's stuff that I can't quote on stream. Well, anyway. Bum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum bum. Macaroni and Brie. Thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure, where we sometimes talk about history. Are history students blessed to not repeat themselves? The ones that pass my class don't have to repeat themselves. It was cutesy and amusing, but not cinematic genius. I will give you that. You don't put expectations it cannot afford. Yeah, okay. You love Danny McBride's entrance? Yes. It is. I always confuse it with The World's End from the Cornetto trilogy because they come out. Yes. This might be blasphemy. I do love Edgar Wright. I do like a lot of his stuff, but The World's End is not his best movie. And I would rather watch This Is the End again than rewatch The World's End. But Shaun of the Dead lives in my heart. Just ripping into everyone and looking at Jay Baruchel is like, hey, Jay, didn't know you're... That men do not learn very much from the lessons of history is the most important of all the lessons of history is Aldous Huxley. Correct. Glad to be here. What a pleasant stream. Oh, yeah, Macaroni and Brie. I like just hanging out with people. And occasionally we'll talk about some history stuff. We'll go watch or go talk about some more stuff. The World's End kind of sucks. It has a great first act. Like the first act of that movie is great. And the second act of that movie is bad. And then the third act of that movie is, oh my God, make it stop. Whereas Hot Fuzz is good first act, okay second act, brilliant third act. I have had cornettos. In fact, when I was in Turkey a couple of weeks ago, I saw cornettos, and I specifically told my travel partner Dan, I've got to get a cornetto, and he's like, it's just an ice cream cone. I'm like, no, it isn't. It's more than that. And then, of course, I had to explain what the Cornetto trilogy was. And he is roughly the same age as my parents and in a much different generation and did not understand the appeal of the Cornetto trilogy at all from the way that I was describing it. And I was doing my best to try to describe it very lovingly. I got the regular, just the old-fashioned standard Cornetto. They had several other ones that were, like one of them No, I actually had two because I had the regular one, and then I got tempted by the salted caramel swirl cornetto, which was okay, but too heavy on the salty part. But then, of course, they had like the fruity ones, and I was just like, fruit and ice cream, not really my thing. So, there we go. Shall we talk a little bit more about history? Okay, so by 668, Goguryeo is destroyed and is brought under control of Shilla and the Tang Dynasty of China, specifically Gaozong. Now, Shilla doesn't get a lot out of this. They do not get a lot of land. They do not get a lot of benefit. They basically get patted on the head and told to go back home. And this is going to start irking the leaders of Korea a little bit, especially this guy. Now, Emperor Munmu, who is this guy. See, strawberries are outside of my wheelhouse. I am allergic to strawberries, and I can't eat that without running the risk of death. So I typically also stay away from like random red fruit mix stuff. So if it's like mixed fruit flavor, I just go ahead and stay away from that too, on the off chance that it has strawberries in it. So yeah, I gotta stay away from the fruity stuff. If it's like a grape popsicle, I'll eat a grape popsicle. Or if I know that it is completely, non-natural flavoring, like if I look at the ingredients and it doesn't say, flavored with natural flavors, I'll eat something like, a strawberry flavored Jolly Rancher or something like that. Not, some like piece of candy or something that like doesn't actually have any strawberry in it. What kind of fruit do you like? I like apples, but not every single apple. Okay, so like I don't like mealy apples. When I bite an apple, I want it to have some bite back. I like sour apples more than I like sweet apples, and I like firm apples, and I will not eat soft mealy apples. Like I don't want to. I want to be able to chew my food. Right? I don't want to bite my food and then it just kind of go like. Granny Smiths, yes, but you eat one, and depending on the size of that one, you might skip every other day, because if you eat too many Granny Smith apples, you will get the revenge of Granny Smith, because those will make certain dominoes begin to fall rather rapidly, if you catch my drift. Digestion occurs much more rapidly. Yeah. This pickiness coming from a man who eats cow tongue. Yeah, mochias. Yeah, I'll eat that stuff too. So, I have my things. I really like apricots. And I wish that... Well, I mean, I have gastric issues. I have IBS. So, like, you got to do what you got to do, right? There are steps that I have to take. And precautions that I must do. So how do we get from Korea to Shane's gastrointestinal health? Cave, you never know what we're going to talk about on this stream. You know that stuff, right? Let's see, what else do I like? I like grapes. Green grapes, purple grapes. I'll eat grapes. I do like oranges, but I don't always like oranges enough to eat an entire orange. Like, if you could make an orange that was roughly this sized, I would eat those all the time. Get on with it! Okay, we're going to get on with it. So, this is King Munmu. here we go. Munmu is the first king of unified Shilla. You just discovered there's an oatmeal cream pie bluebell ice cream. Oh, crap. KP, when you find that, I might need to know where you found that. That sounds amazing. Yeah, I like tangerines. I could eat a tangerine. Yeah, that's about the size, right? Moon is where the Moon Gundam came from. No, Moon Moo. Moon Moo. No, it's not Moon. He's the first king of Shilla that is sort of the big only Korean kingdom that's independent. Now, he is still technically a vassal of the Tang. And Galzung is still technically his overlord. But Munmu is not pleased with this we helped you beat the other two kingdoms and you're not going to give any of that territory to us situation. Munmu feels like Shilla got kind of screwed on that deal. So he's going to start raiding into the other Korean territories. And technically what he's doing is raiding into Tang Dynasty China territories. And Gaozong is going to get really angry at him. And because of the way that the sort of dynastic situation was set up and the way that the vassal system was set up, Gaozong has one of Munmu's brothers kind of down in the Chinese capital, being raised, in the Chinese capital. And he goes, all right, here's the deal. You are now Emperor of Korea, and I'm going to send you back with a big invasion. And Munmu hears about this and sends word down to China and is like, look, I'm sorry, my bad, I quit, I'm not going to do anymore. And Gaozong's like, that's right, you're not going to do anymore. And the response was like, I'm totally going to do more. You bet you could strain a lettuce on Munmu's head. Perhaps. So, in 674, he's going to start doing it again. He's going to take a pretty big portion of what used to be Goguryeo for Shilla. And they're going to get up to this particular river where they're going to sort of use this as a natural boundary against China. And then they're going to start trying to raid on the other side of the river. And this isn't going to go very well. They decide to move their capital a little bit closer to the border so that they can get a little bit more quick communication back and forth between the battle lines. But China is going to respond pretty big. They're going to send a couple of big armies up there. China's going to invest some of its best generals to go up to this area because they are not wanting to give up this territory that they fought for. And China is able to push Shilla back to the borders of this particular river. I can show you where this is because I keep saying the river. So if we zoom in here, you can see this guy, this river right here. This is sort of going to be the border zone where Shilla is going to control all of this now because, of course, they're going to invade the territory of Pekcha as well. And this river right here is going to sort of be the border between Chinese Korea, especially right here in the Liaodong Peninsula, and Korean-controlled Korea, which is down here. But by 676, it becomes pretty clear that China is not going to be able to, not necessarily able, I would probably say they're not going to be willing to try to fully invade the Korean peninsula because it would just be a bit of a mess, right? It's a long way away. They don't like the idea of fighting so deep in enemy territory, especially because one of the reasons they had been so successful in their fights against Pekcha and Goguryeo was that Shilla was sending them local supplies. And now that they're having to stretch supply lines all the way back around to China. And it's a little bit more of a risky maneuver, right? So they're going to sort of put up a uneasy status quo about 676. And they're not going to exchange ambassadors. They're not necessarily going to have a very open line of communication. And they're going to kind of just pretend that the other one doesn't exist. Now, around this time, Mun is going to die. He dies in 681. And really interestingly, Mun gets buried in this really weird rock formation that's out in the ocean. So this naturally occurring rock formation is out in the water, and like this thing right here is Mun-Mu's tomb. And it was underwater when they buried him. So like he purposefully got buried out in this, like off the beach. You walk out on the beach and you look out and there's this kind of rock outcropping, and then in the little dip they just dropped his tomb. It's a big tourist attraction now. You can go see it. So who do we have now? Well, we have his son, whose name is Sinmun. So Sinmun takes over in 681, and he's going to rule until 691. And this is the guy that is really going to be responsible for trying to put the three kingdoms together, right? This is the first time that anybody is really going to have unilateral control over all three of the big regions of Korea. He's got people that were in Shilla, he's got people that were in Pekcha, and he's got some people that were in Goguryeo. Now, most of the Goguryeo region is still going to be under the control of the Chinese, but this guy has a lot to deal with because you've got to try to forge a unified kingdom out of these three different parts, and it's not going to be easy. Almost as soon as he comes to power, his father-in-law is actually going to lead a rebellion after him, or trying to kill him. And if you read the sources, this particular war seems a little silly. Apparently, and this is kind of trying to interpret a little bit of these sources a bit. Apparently, Sinmun couldn't have a son with this guy's daughter. And the father-in-law blamed Sinmun for being impotent, not being able to produce an heir, because this guy wanted a grandson that was going to be emperor one day. So this guy led a rebellion against his son-in-law. Now, is that what happened? I don't know. It's notable that Sunmun had married into a very powerful clan, and this clan is called the Kim family. And if you know anything about Korean politics today, you'll know that the current leader of Korea is Kim Il-sung. No, that's not right. Kim Jong-un. Kim Il-sung was the original guy, and then Kim Jong-il, and now Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un. But the Kim family, it's the same group of people. They've been powerful that far back in time. I don't know why I said Kim Il-sung, because I guess my brain is stuck on Korea War because I'm still humming the MASH theme song in my brain. Mysterious, yeah. Fertility was so mysterious back then. Like, ooh, you can't have a son. You must be a horrible person, and you must have offended the gods. And it can't be genetics, because we don't even know what genetics is. Right? What does a moon wear? A moo with a tutu. Yeah. Yeah, so this guy had to fight a revolt from his father-in-law, and then he had to fight against some of the other nobles, and he launched out on a big plan to try to curb the power of a lot of these noble families, and he did a lot of stuff like reorganizing the public offices in Korea. He tried to adopt a little bit more of a Chinese model which allowed him to shift some old powerful clans out of positions and put some people that were his friends in new positions. He also tried to eliminate some of the surplus of money that nobles were allowed to hold on to. He tried to cut royal stipends that that basically had to be paid out to some of these these noble areas, and that's just the stuff going on inside of the traditional Shilla territory. Now, in this Pekja stuff and this Goguryeo stuff, he's having to do a lot more. One of the things that he does to try to make sure that these areas are more or less under control is that he sort of makes regional capitals. And he'll put these regional capital cities that are basically going to be combo trade places and garrisons, kind of in the popular trade routes and all of these kind of... They're not necessarily occupied territories now because they're larger in the larger parts of the actual kingdom itself. You're going to play some games and get tipsy. All right, Ann, have a good night. We might see you in a bit. I don't know. We'll see what's going on when we get there. All of these names are so hard to spell. Why can't they just use normal language just like Irish? Yeah, because, you know, that doesn't spell Kaylee or anything, right? So this system of regional capitals and power bases is going to be his way to kind of flex on Pekja and Goguryeo. And as governors of these cities, he's going to put people that are in his royal family or people that are sort of top generals that are very closely allied with him. And there's always going to be a very clear military presence in these regions. And this is not him trying to hide. This is him just like being very direct. Like, I run you. Here's my military. You have to do business with my people at this city. There you go. That's what you got to do, right? So Sin Moon manages to bring the country more or less together, but this doesn't mean that the people in former Pekja territory or former Goguryeo territory are going to be super excited. Especially the people in Goguryeo are going to be very, very upset. They were not used to being dominated by foreign powers. Goguryeo had previously been kind of the big dog on the peninsula and been able to run everything. They're not used to being in a subservient role, especially to Shilla, who just, a few years earlier had been kind of on their last leg. But they told China, and China got involved, and that destabilized the entire House of Cards, right? But Sin Moon did get old and die, and here's his tomb, which is really cool. Got a really nice rock retaining wall with these really cool buttresses around it. I like it. I like it a lot. No, I did not go there. This is just a picture that I found on Wikimedia Commons. I have not been to Korea. I have a friend that went to Korea, and I am very jealous of her experiences in Korea, and I wish I would have had the ability to visit her while she was in Korea, but I have not personally been to Korea. I would love to go, though. There's a lot of really, really cool history over there. Is this war? Why did they name the Korean one? Ha 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 ha. All right, so let's look at where we stand. So at the end, we've got the Kingdom of Shilla, this green chunk down here. This is the unified Shilla region. Now this green region right here and this little green region right here are parts of Korean territory that were controlled by China. So especially, again, this peninsula right here, which is the Liaodong Peninsula, that was kind of the Chinese base. So this Chinese province is still very much just right across that river from Korean territory. And this is, during the 600s, a pretty contentious border. Now, not too long after we get into the 700s, they're going to stabilize relationships and they're going to extend ambassadors back to each other, but during the 600s, they're not friendly. So, there we go. That is all that I had planned for today. I know that we had lots of diversions and lots of other ha 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 funny moments. And that's okay because I like those too. So, it's what it is. But do we have any questions? Does anybody have anything about this material that you wanted to ask or anything that you wanted to go back over? Otherwise, we'll go see who we can raid. And I see where we're going to go.
Spartacus!
Macaroni and Brie.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! Spartacus!
Macaroni and Brie, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Now you're Spartacus. Rank 3 things. 3, 1, and 2. I do quite like 2. The number 2, to me, is a little bit cooler than the number 3. But I do like 1 as well. Oh, false dichotomy. Maybe there aren't actually 2. Maybe there are more than 2 or fewer than 2. So maybe 1 is the right answer. Yeah, so I'm going to have to rank it 1, 2, 3. Three is just too much. Like, I just think three's... I don't know, 3 just doesn't sit well with me. Shows how bad of a Catholic I am, right? I'm not actually a Catholic. I was giving it thought. Moose, I see standard question book. What caused my interest in Korea? Diana's guy, first, welcome to the chat. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you're having a good day. I like history and like world history. And the reason that we're covering Korea tonight is because it's sort of in the order of things. On Thursdays, we cover history in chronological order, and we are covering the 6th century right now. I'm sorry, the 7th century right now, the 600s. And we start over here on this side of the world, and we just loop our way around. So we did Japan last week, and now we're doing Korea, and then next week we'll talk about China. And the week after that, we might talk about Tibet. I don't know. We might check in down here in Southeast Asia and then do Tibet. I don't know yet. I haven't thought that far ahead. We'll see. Dun 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 dun. Did the Hanbok exist yet? If you're talking about like the clothes, the Hanbok, yes, because those actually come from earlier than the period of time that we're talking about. Those are from the very early parts of the Three Kingdoms period, if that's what you're specifically talking about. What was the significance of this period of time with the Korean 7th century? So when I decided to do the stream, my brain said, just do history in order, right? Just start at the beginning and go all the way through to the modern period of time. But then I realized you can't do that because there's too much stuff going on at the same time. So I started breaking things down into chunks, right? So we did the Bronze Age, and that was a big chunk of time, right? And inside of the Bronze Age, we did the early Bronze Age, the middle Bronze Age, and the late Bronze Age. But while we were talking about like the late Bronze Age, we talked about all of the different kingdoms that existed during that period of time, right? So we were talking about Chinese Bronze Age, we were talking about like India Bronze Age, we were talking about Mesopotamia Bronze Age, we were talking about Anatolian Bronze Age, Greek Bronze Age, etc., right? So everything going on in that chunk of time. And then as we progressed and we got to like written history, I realized that it was just like too much to do big chunks of time, that I had to squish them down. So for a little while, we were doing 200-year periods of time. And then we are progressing even further, and now like I'm just doing 100-year chunks of time. So there wasn't specifically anything that made me say we've got to just do 7th century Korea. It was the format of the show dictates that I cover things that happen between the years 600 and 700 in Korea. And then next time we'll go to what happens in between 600 and 700 in China. Because we're just looking at the 7th century right now. So we'll do what's going on in Japan and Korea and China and probably Southeast Asia. Maybe, I don't know yet. We'll see. We'll do what's going on in Tibet, because Tibet actually establishes an empire of its own during this particular century. We'll talk about what's going on in Persia. We'll talk about India, and we'll talk about... we've got a couple of different streams that are going to happen in the Middle East, because we're going to do the establishment of Islam and the rise of the Arab Caliphate, and then we're going to do a whole stream on just what Islam is and introduce that as a religion to the world. Then we'll do one on the Byzantine Empire, and then we'll do one on probably the Goths. I don't know. Probably not the Goths. I mean, we'll have Visigoths at least, right? Yeah. And then the Franks, and then we'll go look at what's going on in the Americas. And we're just looking at whatever is happening in the year 600 to 699. History of K-pop being offered next semester. We do viewer request streams. So there are a couple of different ways to get a viewer request stream to happen. If you hang around long enough, you will start collecting adventure points. So if you look below your chat, you'll see the adventure hat, and you'll see that you are accumulating adventure points. One of the things that you can do is save up 10,000 adventure points, and then you can buy a viewer request stream where I cover a topic that you want me to cover with some guidelines. Like, I'm not going to do random stuff that I don't think I could get an actual lesson out of. Or you can hang around, usually every other or so viewer request stream. We'll just have a poll, and anybody in the chat can suggest a topic, and then anybody in the chat can vote. JMR, you are on the list to buy a stream. We have a few people that are on the list to buy a stream right now. You are 4th on the list. And viewer request streams can be anything. Like the last few we've done, the last one was on Tuesday. We did U.S. Reconstruction, the period of time that's considered the Reconstruction era. The one before that, we did specifically the way that East Germany did their police state during the Cold War. We looked a lot at the Stasi. But we've done pirates, and we've done the history of the KGB, and we've done cheese. And I keep all of my VODs, or as many of them as I can remember to save. So if you find my channel and go down to videos and start looking back through my VODs, you can see just about all of my episodes. So next Tuesday we're doing a viewer request episode that everybody voted on. And we're doing the Empire of Sweden. And we did specifically medieval Poland. Not modern Poland, but medieval Poland. Yeah, that was a good one too. All right. Let me catch back up with chat. Do I teach as a professor? Yes, Diana's guy. I teach college. I have taught for the last 15 years, and I've taught everything from 5th grade through junior high and high school. I've taught university level stuff. I currently teach mostly introduction level classes. So like freshmen, sophomores is usually what I teach now. And I teach history and sociology. So I do teach for a living. I've got lots of fancy pieces of paper. Would you consider Sociology 101 as a potential viewer request? I couldn't do Sociology 101 in a stream. That would be something that I would have to spend. Well, I mean, when I teach Sociology 101, I have like 30 something lessons in the semester. So, I mean, it's a lot of material. You have 14K, you're ready. You love it. I'm glad it came here tonight. Moose, I haven't forgot standard question book. Sociology 101 would be realistically at least 2 streams, maybe 3. It might be like 15 streams. If I were going to teach my entire sociology class. I don't know. If you really want to see me do sociology stuff, maybe I could work out a way to be remunerated for that. Some people are mean. The end. All right, so this is the standard question book and home study outlines. For those of you that, I know we've got a lot of new people in the chat tonight, so let me explain. This little book was published in 1911, so it is 111 years old now. Good gracious, 111 years old. And this was part of a college home study bundle, basically, where you would write to a university, they would send you all these books, and at the end of every chapter, you would go here. And it has just a bunch of questions. And if you could not answer all of these questions, you would then need to go back and review. And when you could answer all of these questions, you would send off for the test, and you would complete the test and send the test back in. So this is like, a correspondence course back in the day. The thing is, I don't have the kit. I don't have the textbook. I don't have anything that goes with it. All I have is the book of questions. And it really is just a whole book full of random historical questions. So what we do is we find a page, and I can't see what's going on here. So I like this page. And let's just go this question. And then I'll read it. And if I know the answer to it, I'll say the answer to it. But if I don't know the answer, we go look it up. All right. Why should we not say, I expect you know all about it? Give the sentence correctly. Wow, I have no idea what that has nothing to do with history. But let me show you what I'm looking at here. Why should we not say, I expect you know all about it? Give the sentence correctly. This is weird. What section is this in? This is literally in a section that's called the correct use of words. That is amazing. Correct use of words. I love it. I love it. Okay, I expect you know all about it. Give the sentence correctly. Okay, so I would say that there are 2 different ways to do this. And it really depends on your impetus. And this would have been where it would have been nice to have the actual book so that I could go to page 194 and see what they're talking about. So there are 2 ways to fix this.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Tuna. 18 months, my friend. You are truly of the high race. The men of Gondor. You're here, feel free to end stream now. We're doing a standard question book, and then we're probably going to raid. What is the question one more time? Okay, so the question says, Why should we not say, I expect you know all about it? Give the sentence correctly. Okay, so I would say a way to say this properly would be, I expect you to know all about it, or I expect that you know all about it. The reason we shouldn't say, I expect you know all about it, is that the verb there is you know. I expect you know. And that usually doesn't work with subjective tenses, right? So when we're talking about this sentence, what's happening here is that I expect is in the present tense, but you know is in the subjunctive tense, right? Because it's potentially not true or it potentially is true. So when you are conjugating English words into the subjunctive tense, I expect you know is not the correct way to do that. So you have to modify that to make it something like a prepositional phrase. I expect that, or I expect you to know, and then make it the infinitive version of the verb. I expect you to know, which would be correct. Or you would then add in the demonstrative adjective that in order to shift it. That you know. So there we go. It shouldn't say, I expect you know all about it, because you shouldn't expect me to know about anything. Is the standard question book one of the ancient Jedi texts? No, because it is still intact, and we all know that the very angry Ghost Yoda burned the whole thing down. Spoilers for episode 8. So there we go. All right, that's a weird one. You know all about it, I expect. That's another way of, that's a good way of arranging it as well. You know all about it, comma, I expect. Because then the verb you know all about it. You know it. That way your verb has a nominative. You know it. Right? Yeah, I think that's right. Grammar is fun. All right, other questions? Anybody got anything else going on or want to throw things on there or do any things? Do you have a favorite tertiary historical figure? Like somebody that's not famous but should be famous, but it's not even should be famous because they're like so far down. They're not like a Julius Caesar, right? They're not somebody that's way up there that everybody should know about, right? But they're like not even a B-list, right? This is like a C-list movie star. That's my favorite character. I have a ton of these people that are just weird little groups of people that like do interesting things that nobody knows about. Scipio Africanus is probably one of my favorites. He's not one of the big people that most people know about in Rome. Like he's not an Augustus, or he's not a Julius Caesar. He's not even really like a Cicero or anybody like that. He's just a guy that does some stuff. But Scipio Africanus was really, really cool. I like that guy a lot. One of the more important Byzantine emperors is a guy named Heraclius that I don't think basically anybody knows about. And I think that guy's really important. It is one of my favorite historical characters. in Western world history, you don't hear a lot about Asian history, but there's a guy named Zhuge Liang who's part of the, and I've talked about him several times on stream, in the Three Kingdoms period of China. And if you know like Chinese history, he's probably a secondary character in Chinese history. But he might not even be a tertiary. He might be like a quaternary in Western history, because people just don't know about Chinese history that much. But he was a really brilliant general for the Shi clan in the War of Three Kingdoms. There's a Japanese guy that he's a court magician. Technically, his title is Onmyoji. He was an Onmyoji. But his name is Abe no Seimei. And he's pretty cool. He's pretty cool. Yeah, the weather predictor. Yeah. There we go. Vipers, you are a primary historical figure, my friend, because you are legendary in the stream. You're not even noteworthy enough to be played by Michael Cera. It's okay. He wouldn't play you anyway. He would just play him playing you. Abe no Seimei is a pretty cool character. He's during the Heian period of Japan. Is a really interesting guy. The period of time in Japan where magic was really, really weird. He'd butcher the job, right? All right. We got anything else going, ladies and gents? If not, I know where we're going to go and hit a raid. Legend, wait for it. Dairy. Oh, no, Tuna did What's in the News, and I get to pick what's in the news. There's so much good stuff in the news. What should I talk about? Last time I was asked what's in the news, I talked about Boris, and I said that the only way that he was going to actually leave the job is if everybody in his cabinet quit and nobody would take those positions. So I feel like I called that one pretty well. I could talk about Boris again, but I think I'll talk about Italy. Italy's in a bit of a pickle. So the political situation in Italy is a bit of a mess because they have a very tenuous, had a very tenuous coalition government. The biggest group of which was the Five-Star Movement, or Five-Star political group inside of Italy. But basically, they had a lot of different people that were in a really, really tenuous coalition government. And they couldn't find somebody to be prime minister. And they basically begged and dragged Mario Draghi, who had been prime minister of Italy previous, out of like self-imposed quasi-retirement to be prime minister again. And he really didn't want to do it. Like, for real, he wasn't excited about the job, but it was like the only way that they were going to get a government to work in Italy, and Italy got hit really, really hard by COVID. I don't know if you all remember how badly Italy got wrecked by COVID, but they were one of the first places that really, really got hit hard and had to shut down basically everything for a very long period of time. And one of the reasons why this government was having so much trouble is because it's hard to respond to so many disparate crises, right? Because when you shut down like that, it doesn't just hurt the economy, it hurts everything. So the government was having a hard time trying to answer all of these different problems and try to put all these brush fires. And as of earlier today, the biggest member of the coalition, the Five-Star Movement, pulled out of the coalition. And this basically left Draghi with not enough votes to pass anything. Right? So if they didn't vote with him, he wasn't going to get anything passed at all. So he put in his resignation. He's like, look, I didn't really want to do this to begin with, and I'm out. Now, what's interesting is that the president of Italy, who's really not as powerful as the president of the United States at all. The prime minister is much more of a political leader than the president is. The president has several functions, and they are important. It's not like a stuffed shirt position, but the majority of the political power lies in the role of the prime minister. Yeah, I'm not even supposed to be here today. Exactly. He was like, I'm not even supposed to be there this term. But when Draghi tendered his resignation, the president refused to accept it. And this has put Italy in a bit of a weird spot because they have a coalition that is technically no longer a coalition, a prime minister that no longer wants to be a prime minister, and a president that says, no, 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 we all need to sit back down and make it work. And I don't know if they can. I don't know if they're going to be able to make it work. It's a mess right now. A government that can do nothing would be a step up from the UK Tory government. Oh, there's a hot take. Vipers, since you bring that back up, I'll loop back around to that and give you all an extra bit of a tidbit. I was asked by our mods the other day who I thought was going to be prime minister. And I said my knee-jerk reaction was Jeremy Hunt. But I know that's not going to be the case. So I disqualified Jeremy Hunt. And the obvious choice then should have been Rishi Sunak. But he was way too early to take up for Boris and way too late to discredit Boris. And I don't think Sunak has the gas to get across the finish line. And I brought in two potential other options. And the other options were Liz Truss and Penny Mordaunt. And I was very happy that in the first round of voting, those two came out numbers 2 and 3. Sunak did come out number 1, but everybody knew that the Borisians, those are the people that like Boris Johnson, were going to all vote for Sunak. He's not going to pick up many more votes. He came out of the gate really strong, but as other candidates fall off of the voting record, he's not going to pick a lot of them up. He's got most of his support right now already. I initially thought that Liz Truss might have the edge, and I'm still not 100% sure that she doesn't. But right now it's kind of looking like Mordaunt might be the way to go. And it's funny, Nomad, that you bring up Margaret Thatcher. One of the things about Liz Truss is that she basically has said that she wants to be Margaret Thatcher. You think Penny Mordaunt, because she hasn't been she's been under the radar and hasn't had a chance to disgrace herself yet. I think that's a big part of it. But she has had some scandal. She's said some stuff that was very well, the media had a big field day with it. Whether or not she meant it the way that I don't know. She said some stuff that was taken as incredibly anti-transsexual, and had to walk that back. I don't know how that's going to maybe come back. The big thing going for her right now is I think that she's got a military background. I mean, I know that she has a military background, and I think that might help with the sort of more militaristic outlook that Europe is expecting right now. No, I know Sunak is not scandal-free. I think Sunak has all of the votes that he's probably going to get. He might get 2 or 3 more, but I don't think that he's going to win. But it's funny that you mentioned digging up Margaret Thatcher, especially because Liz Truss sort of wants to be the next Margaret Thatcher and might get a shot. I think Truss has a lot more support than a lot of people think that she does. I'm thinking to myself while on stream, and I shouldn't do that because you all can't understand all this stuff that's. You can't hear my thoughts. All right. All right. My voice is about done. I streamed for 3 hours on Tuesday, and we've gone for 2.5 hours now. So let's go ahead and do a raid. We are going to bring back a raid over to my buddy Dr. WD40, who very kindly brought us a humongous raid on Tuesday. So let's go raid Dr. WD40. He's a cool guy. He is a biologist and pretty frequently does stuff like metal detecting and bird watching on stream. He's got a really great multimedia travel setup for streaming. It's really friggin' impressive. So let's go give Doc some love. We'll shout adventure when we arrive. And if you have those lovely hats, throw those in the ring. The next time you'll definitely see me is Tuesday. I hope that over the weekend I can work on a Gundam model, but we'll see. Tress is like a shaved rat who had her. Oh wow, holy moly, that's rough. As much as they complain about Thatcher, they want her back because she's still better than what they've had lately. That's can confirm. Thanks for streaming. Thank you, Bree, and thank you for the sub and the follow and all that fun support and chat. So, see everybody next time. Have a good weekend if I don't see you before then, and yeah, be nice to people and be nice to yourself and take care of folks. And see you next time.